Kia ora friends, welcome back to my studio. I'm Gina, and in today's video I'm going to be making this brownstone building. It is going to have a little bit of a twist on the inside, and it's going to have a theme of The Dark Tower by Stephen King, which is based off this video clip.
1919 Midworld. Midworld. One-way destination.
So I started off with a kit already, and it's given me a bit of a base to work from. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to start with creating the door surround, and I'm using lots of different pieces of wood. So between balsa wood, some popsicle sticks, anything that I had laying around, and I'm just going to layer up some different shapes in order to give me the look that I'm after. So I'm just going to work my way through that and create the surround. I also have 3D printed the corbels, which I've actually managed to get offline, and sized them to match the surround that I'm actually looking for. So once I've glued all that up together, then we can move on to the next step. So I'm just using a mixture of black paint and Mod Podge, and what this is going to do is not only give us a good base to paint on later, but it'll actually seal up all of that wood as well as helping glue it all together and make it nice and strong. So this is just a wooden floor that I'm going to use some coffee stir sticks with. I've painted the base black underneath just so that if there are any gaps, it's showing black up underneath it rather than the timber. Now to move on to the back wall, and as you would have seen from the video clip, it's quite a distinctive shape for the portal. So I'm just cutting this out of some mat board, and then I'm just going to paint that black again with that Mod Podge and black paint mix. There's some quite fine little details here, and that just helps strengthen it all up once it's dry. So what I want to do is I want to create some layers with the back wall, and this is going to give me the look of the portal at the back as well as the wall at the front, and I want to create some lath and plaster in between. So I'm just using some mat board at the front, some foam board, which is 5mm or 1/4 of an inch thick foam board, and then I'm just going to go around and create some decorative pieces. So this is just some thin paper just to create the exterior sort of metal work around the outside. Moving on to the structure of the walls. So these are basically kind of like the studs in the wall, and then I'm going to go through and add in some thin strips of wood to act as the lath, so as if the wall has been blown apart by the portal being in there. And so what I'm trying to do here is just create that effect. So I've just 3D printed some shapes here. You're not really going to see them too much. I wasn't worried about them being too perfect. But what I really was looking for is some skirting boards, some picture rails, as well as some picture moulding. So I've just 3D printed those and just glued those into place, along with a few little greeblies. Now moving on to the paint, what I want to do is try and age all of their walls as much as possible. So this is just a bit of a base foundation, and then I'll go through and add a darker wash over the top as well. Also onto all of the wood slats, I want to give them a sort of a very much of a dusty, weathered look, and so just putting a base coat over the top, dry brushing with a bit of white, and then I'm just going to go back and darken up the shadows in the back there. For the wallpaper, I've just printed this off onto some printer paper, and I've got a mix of glue and paint here that I'm going to use to actually stick the wallpaper into strips. The reason why I've cut this into strips rather than just one full sheet is because I really want to age it and make it look like the wallpaper is sort of peeling away where it joins up together. And then just to finish it off, I'm just going to add in another coat of that same paint mixture just to age it up a little bit more. One thing with the paint and glue mix is that often the paint tends to dry a bit lighter because it's been diluted a little bit. So I'm just adding another layer in there. So for the window or the portal itself, what I'm using is just some sort of takeaway lid containers, and I've just cut that down nice and flat, and then just using a bit of sandpaper I'm just going to scuff up the surface, just trying to make the outer edges sort of more scuffed than the middle because I really want to be able to see through the middle, and that's the picture that I'm going to use in the background. Then using some bit of UV resin, I'm just going to create a bit of a swirl pattern, and then I'm going to set that with my UV light. Once that's all set, I do have a white pigment that I've mixed in with the UV resin, and I'm just going to paint that around the outside, and then I just want to test to see whether it is actually dark enough. What I've realized is it just needs another coat of the white there. So for the actual panel itself, I'm just going to jump into Tinkercad. Now, I'm not going to go into too much details about this. If you want to know how to use this particular software, I'm more than happy to create a video about it. But this is really just a sort of a speeded up version of the process that I took to create the little panel, and then I've printed it off on my 3D printer and then painted it up and wired in some lights into the back, which I'll show you very shortly. So that's the panel all finished. It's just all just painted up with a bit of silver, and then just adding in some lights just on either side to give it the illusion that it's actually got some electronics in behind it. So once I'm happy with that, I can glue that into place, and that's all good to go. So once those are all done, I can start to glue those into the project. So just to move back to the outside of the project, I'm just creating the very top part around the roof line, and I'm just using again some layered up pieces of wood and some 3D printed sort of corbel type things. So I'm just going to glue all those layers together and then cover it with a coat of black paint and Mod Podge. So one of the things that I wanted to add is a little Easter egg, which is this 1919, which is the code that he puts into the panel, and I'm just going to use that as the number of the house. So for the brickwork, what I've done is I've 3D printed a brick roller, run some polymer clay through my pasta maker, and then baked it. And now what I'm doing is just cutting out the individual bricks, which I will glue individually onto the very front of the piece. It's not too bad, it didn't take me too long to do, but I really wanted to get that illusion of sort of real bricks. So once that's all done, I'm just going to shift onto another product, which is paper clay, and this will give me the sort of more stonework below, and then I'm also going to use that soft shaper just to shape in the lines of the sort of more stonework below. All I'm just going to do is paint this up. So I've just mixed up a bit of paint. I'm just going to repaint the stairs because they were too grey and I really wanted that sort of more warmer brownstone type of colour. And then I'm picking out some individual brick colours with some varying shades of that same colour, and then I'm just going to go over the whole thing with a wash to bring it all together. For the grout, what I've done is I've added in some wall filler into a small bag and just snipped off the very corner, and then I'm just going to pipe in all around the different bricks to give me the illusion of grout, and then I'm just going to push that in with my little shaper tool just to make sure that it's all nicely sealed in there. I do go back and give it a light wash over the top just to kind of tone down the brightness of that white filler. So now we can start gluing things into place. So we can glue the stairs into place now that everything is all painted up. Everything's kind of looking quite uniform, which is awesome. So back to that paper clay, what I'm going to do is put the concrete path out the front. I'm going to cut in some sort of concrete lines into the paper clay. Moving on to the gardens, which I'm going to create 2 little garden beds on either side of the stairs. And so to begin with, I'm just going to put a layer of, so this is a mixture that I've made up of tile grout and just dirt from the garden, just with a layer of glue underneath will actually help seal it all together. And then I'm just going to give it a quick spritz with isopropyl alcohol and watered down PVA glue. And then once that's dry, that will set up really nicely. So just painting out the concrete, so I'm just going to give it a base layer of this grey, and then I'm going to stipple over a couple of layers of different shades of the same paint, so one lighter, one darker, and then once that's all done, I'm just going to go through and give it a nice wash. So once the wash had dried, it was just a little bit too dark, so I'm just going in with a dry brush of white just to bring back some of that light of the path, and then darkening in some of those shadows. So now I can fit in the railings, so I've just 3D printed these off a file that I got off Thingiverse, as well as some newel posts. So I've actually created these newel posts myself, and the other little posts are just dowels that I've wrapped with some bits of paper. So I just wanted to add a couple more details to the exterior, and being in New York, I thought what was more fitting than a New York fire hydrant. So this was just a file that I again 3D printed from, I think it was from Thingiverse, and then I'm just painting this up to make it look a little bit more weathered. So just using a base of silver and then just patching in the details of the red, and then using some Dirty Down rust to give it some rust effect as well. So for the garden, I've got these plastic plants. They're quite cheap. So what I've done is I've just fixed them to a bit of mat board and just given them a bit of primer. And now I'm going to go through and individually paint them all out. So I'm just going to go through with some different layers of paint, and then I'm going to come back in and give them a bit of a spritz from the airbrush in 2 different colours just to kind of give some variation to the leaves and just bring some life back into them. And then once that's all done, then I'm just going to go through and paint up the flowers. I'm really happy with how the plants have turned out, and then just using a bit of Fabri-Tac glue. It tends to work quite well with plastic, so I'm just going to glue those into the garden, and then once I'm happy with that, I can actually put the rest of the fence into place. Before we move too far ahead, I just want to put the back onto the project. So this is the picture that you saw before, and then I'm just going to hinge that onto the door. So I've just added in some strip LED lights just around the outside there, just so that that makes it look like the portal is glowing. For the garden on the other side of the project, what I want to do is add in a tree, and as you can see, I've obviously made this tree before I finished off all of the outside of the project. I do have a detailed tutorial on making the tree, so I haven't gone into too much detail here, but basically it is wire twisted together, coated with some hot glue, and then I use my soldering iron to give some texture onto the bark, and once it's painted up it looks pretty realistic. And then just using some foam of different textures, and then I'm just using some flocking just to kind of dust it over the top. It looks really light here, but actually in the project it actually looks quite good. And then once I'm happy with that, I can glue that into place and then finish off the other side of the garden as well as the fence. Just to add in some final touches, I'm just going to add some leaves into the very corners as if it's been blown around by the wind. So that's it, and I really hope that you've enjoyed this video. If you have, give it a like, and if you haven't done so already, subscribe to the channel. Until next time, I'll see you then. Bye for now.